Hello and welcome to This Week in James City County. I'm your host, Renee Dahlman. Today I am joined by Sergeant Tony Quiros. Sergeant Quiros is with Animal Control and you're a park ranger too? Did I get that right?
Yes, ma'am. I'm in charge of the Animal Control Unit and the Park Rangers Unit.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I really appreciate you being willing to come on. This was kind of at the last minute and you were willing and ready, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I am super excited to be on, and I would really love to be on more times if possible, because since I've come into this unit, there's a lot of things I didn't know about, and I've been in law enforcement over 30 years. There's a lot of different laws, rules, and regulations, and a lot of people call and ask about it all the time. And if we can start to educate people and let them know what they need to do to take better care of our domestic companions, that would be awesome.
Okay, well, I'm going to hold you to that. So that's awesome. Hopefully, next month we'll get you back. But today we thought that it would be a good idea. I know that it is supposed to be very, very cold here in the county this, or all over really, this weekend. And I understand that there is a law that is in place that deals with pets and the cold. And you're the best person to come on and talk about it. Can you let us know a little bit more about that law?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first came into the animal control unit, like a lot of people, I thought it was just a dog catcher. That's what they did. However, um, the more and more I worked with other people and collaborated with agencies such as the Tidewater Wildlife Rescue,
Mhm.
such positive adoptions, that those are different organizations that go out and help animals, help kittens and stuff like that. Really great organizations that have actually taught me a lot of things too. I'm used to chasing fleeing felons with two legs, and now I'm chasing feather and fur. Um, and in that, I've come to work closely with our Commonwealth Attorney's Office and with the Virginia Attorney General's Office. A lot of it has to do with learning the laws, rules, and regulations when it comes to animal cruelty and just taking care of our domestic companions. There's a lot of people that call in and say that the neighbor's animal is being abused, the neighbor's dog is being abused. And there is a specific law, a specific code. It's under the Virginia Code, Chapter 65, which is going to be Virginia Code 3.2 6500. That gives you the breakdown of everything you need to know to understand what proper care of our companion animals is. You can also go to the James City County, City of Williamsburg code, which is Chapter 3, which covers all of animals. So
Okay.
they mirror each other. So under Virginia Code 3.2 6500, it talks about good husbandry, the taking care of our domestic companions, also agricultural companions, such as horses, cows,
Mhm.
goats, et cetera, et cetera. And one specific section is adequate shelter. Several years ago, the governor of Virginia added a little portion to that to define what animal cruelty is when it comes to weather. And it clearly states, and I'm going to read it for you
Mhm.
clear off the code. The National Weather Service is very important with this because the National Weather Service puts out heat advisories, storm advisories, winter storm, et cetera, et cetera. So a
Mhm.
lot of these depend on the National Weather Society. The outdoor tethering of any animal shall not constitute the provision of adequate care. I'll define adequate care here in a few minutes. Unless the animal is safe from predators and well suited and well equipped to tolerate its environment. During the effective period of a hurricane warning or tropical storm warning issued by the National Weather Service, during any heat advisory issued by a local or state authority, when the actual effective temperature is 85 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, or 32 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, or during the effective period of severe weather warning issued by the National Weather Service. What does this mean? Um, it means your pets really don't need to be outside.
Okay.
Uh, if you have a pet that's going to be a domestic animal, domestic companion, a pet that's going to be outside, it has to meet a certain provision of shelter. Adequate shelter is access to a shelter that is suitable for the species, suitable for the animal's age, its health conditions, the size of the animal, etc. It must be able to protect the animal from injury, from rain, from sleet, from snow, from hail, from direct sunlight, um, adverse conditions of cold. It has to avoid the animal from having any physical suffering. It must be properly lit so that the animal can see what it's doing when it's inside the shelter,
Mhm.
and it must be properly cleaned. The animal must be able to be in a clean, dry location, depending on the animal also, but
Mhm.
it has to be able to get out of the wet. During a cold weather or severe snow or et cetera, there must be a windbreak at the entrance of the shelter. So we see a lot of dog kennels, dog houses, the 55-gallon barrel drum that somebody will cut a hole in the front and they call this adequate shelter. It is not.
Mhm.
A washing machine tilted over where the dog can go into the washing machine. That is metal. It is going to conduct and suck in the cold. It's not going to keep the animal from the cold. It's not going to promote heat. It has to be a material that'll keep the animal warm inside, that'll block the cold away. So the flooring inside the shelter, it must have hay, cedar chips, something dry that they can put their paws on, their hooves on, whatever the case may be, and stay dry. Back to the wind block, all these shelters and things that we build for our animals has to have a cover in the front so that the wind just can't blow
Mhm.
inside. That's something we see a lot of that people don't do. Um, but whatever shelter there is, it must be dry, must be clean, must be lit, and has to be elevated so that the water, the snow, and stuff doesn't get inside of the animal. And one important thing is potable water, drinking water. We see a lot where people will put a metal bowl outside for their animals, and it freezes the water
Mhm.
so they can't drink the water. The best way to sum it all up is if you could look at the water and say to yourself, I could drink that. It's probably good water for them to drink. And that pretty much sums up what it is to have adequate shelter. But
Well,
like I said, go to
that's
Virginia.
amazing. There was a whole bunch that I had no idea about. That's amazing.
Well, there's a lot more, but it also goes into what kind of flooring you can actually use and stuff like that in these shelters. And that's some things that we look for. Like
Okay.
a lot of people think pallets are good, but if the paw can go through the slats, it's not good.
Sure. Okay. So what happens if you get a phone like this weekend?
Yes, ma'am.
Somebody notices that their neighbor has an animal out and it's not being protected. What happens? What do you do?
Okay, so in the past, and like I say, a lot of people say we are the dog catcher and we snatch people's animals away from them. We don't.
Okay.
The best thing to do, and I work in collaboration with the Heritage Humane Society, and they've also taught me ways to go out and teach people
Mm.
how to treat their companions better. So I rather go out there and teach people how to treat their animals better than to fill the Heritage Humane Society. And if you ever had a chance to come down to the Heritage Humane Society, it's mostly run by volunteers. The Humane Society is probably one of the most important buildings in James City County. As a police officer, I never realized how important an animal shelter really was. But all your cats, dogs, everything, including roosters and pigs, come to the Heritage Humane Society.
That's amazing.
And there's like a hotel, there's only so many rooms. So rather than snatching somebody's animal away from them, taking somebody's animal and bringing it to the heritage or to the pound, we don't have a pound. We bring them to the Heritage Humane Society. So we would rather leave the person with better education, better tools to work with, better contacts to reach out to if they need help, and keep their animal there. So if you call me and say my neighbor is abusing their animal because their animal is outside all the time, I will actually go out to the location, whether the person is there or not. I don't have to have a search warrant, and I can go into the location. I can look at the animal. I can see what kind of shelter is being provided, take the notes, make contact with the owner of the animal, of the domestic companion, and teach them. I will then give them a warning. It will be either a written warning or a verbal warning, and I will follow up within a few days to make sure that they have complied with the law. If this is a repeat offender, somebody who just feels that this is the way I've done it my entire life, this is the way my grandfather did it, this is what I'll explain to them the law. I'll show them the law. And if at that point we don't get cooperation from that person, then I will charge them and I will seize the animal.
And at the end of the day, that is the absolute last thing you want to do.
The last thing I want to do.
Okay. Well, Tony, we are so lucky to have you here. And I'm so happy that you have found your way into animal control, because that's not where you started by any stretch.
No, no. Like I said, from fleeing felons to feathering.
All right. Well, is there anything else particularly that we need to know going into this weekend with the cold weather? And another question, and this is probably a silly question, but if your dog primarily lives inside and you're just letting your dog out to do their business and letting them right back in, do you have to have that kind of shelter?
No. If
Okay.
it's if the dog is an indoor dog, if your companion animal is an indoor animal, you can just let it out, take care of its business, come right back in.
Okay.
Um, there are I've seen animals, especially the big furry ones like German shepherds and huskies, that you can provide them shelter, but they choose to be in no. They Labradors, they choose to jump into that frozen pond, even
Right.
though they have perfectly good shelter. It's you can provide it for them, but they don't have to use it.
And that's a really important point, because you see, especially now, people with their big furry Great Pyrenees or whatever out laying down in the snow and just relaxing. So just like you've said, as long as you've provided that shelter, that's really what matters. So, and then, we can only have dogs and other companion animals do but so much. So I get that.
I'm wearing a fur coat. I'm enjoying it out here.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm glad that you've told me this, because otherwise I was going to take off this afternoon and go home and make our little dog's name is Thor. Go and make Thor a shelter. So, but he is very much so an inside dog. So I think we're going to be safe this weekend.
So yes, if you have any questions, and you want to reach out to the animal control unit, I know we have a phone number here, but we're rarely ever in the office. This is one of
Okay.
the rare that we are in the office. We're on the roads. If you need to contact animal control, you need an animal control officer or a park ranger, you call the police department's non-emergency phone number, or you
Okay.
can send an email.
Okay. Very good. Well, and I will include all of that information on how to get in touch with you all as
Perfect.
well at the end of the show. So that is great. Tony, I keep calling you Tony. I'm sorry, because I know you. Sergeant Quiros, thank you so much for agreeing to come on, and especially in the last minute. And I have a feeling that you and I are going to see each other a lot over this next year or so. And I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it too. And I believe we have a Fido Fest coming up in March. So keep that in mind.
That is
Fastest.
true. Okay, I will tell you, we just did another episode on housing, and the gentleman that was on, he does like efficiency testing. And so he brought props onto the show, which was amazing and demonstrated. You have access to some special props,
I
maybe.
couldn't find this morning. We have a blind kitten, and
Oh,
they call her Sloth, but I call her Werewolf. And she was in my office yesterday for a little while I was doing some admin work, and I would have loved to have her in here. She is the sweetest black cat, but she's
oh,
born blind.
oh. Okay, well then it's a done deal. We want to see you, but next time there must be something furry with you. So,
I promise. I
okay.
promise.
All right, Tony, again, Sergeant Quiros, again, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. You have a blessed and safe new year.
Thank you, you too. Well, that wraps up this week episode of This Week in James City County. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please be sure to subscribe. That way you will never miss an episode. And go to our website. We're at jamescitycountyva.gov/podcast. And while there, you're going to find all of our forms, all of our shows, as well as a form that you can complete, give us show ideas. You can tell us which pets you want Sergeant Quiros to bring on each episode. That would be awesome. He said something about a rooster. I like that idea. So anyhow, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk with you next week.